Hello, my name is Roxanne Armstrong, and I was asked to talk a little bit about my childbearing experience in hopes that it can help inspire others to recognize that they can feel empowered and have a role and can become educated and be able to take control of their birth and their lives and their children's lives. So this is just a quick little presentation on our story. So I love this quote to begin with. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I love this because in my personal experience, this has definitely been the case. That realizing and reflecting that it's much easier to be able to start good from the get-go than have to backtrack and try to fix what's broken after the fact. I remember growing up, my mom always used to tell me that it's easier to get A's than C's because then you're not always having to play catch up. And as a kid, I resisted that, but now I can definitely see her point. So a lot of the questions I had to kind of filter through, and I think are important for everyone to look at if they're really wanting to have an empowered birth, is do you have the idea or belief that creating a baby starts when a baby is conceived and stops after the baby is born? I think this was mine for a long time. I didn't realize that there were so many aspects of what I did before conceiving our baby that really would affect the life that it was going to have, and not just the pregnancy, but afterwards. And what are our beliefs around nutrition and birthing outcomes? I didn't even realize that nutrition played a huge impact and had a huge effect on my life and the baby's life. It seems obvious now, but I really hadn't considered the effects that it could have. And why do you have these beliefs, and where do they come from? And a lot of it is going to come from the situations we were raised in. If it was important to our parents, it'll probably be important to us. If we were taught it by our parents or our community, then we likely learned it. But if we didn't learn a lot of those things, then we're not going to have that in our toolbox or know that we have options that are there. So our story, first and foremost, get educated. I was not educated. I kind of was flying by the seat of my pants. And so I got pregnant at 25 with our first little girl, Leah. And I had a really, really rough pregnancy. It was miserable. And I was uncomfortable and I was sick, and it just was not a fun experience. And I threw up through the entire thing. And so when she was born, I was so excited to get her out of me. And I started feeling so crappy after she came out. And then within 6 weeks, she got spinal meningitis and ended up in the hospital and was on IV antibiotics. And after that, she started to just not do well. She'd get little rashes on her bum that I couldn't figure out how to get better. And she just was kind of struggling. And so I was beginning on this path of nutrition and natural healing. And I had been raised from a mom that didn't take us to the doctors very often, but I didn't realize even with that how much I still had a medical mindset towards a lot of things. And I just had never learned that there was another option. And so as I was learning these things, we were kind of sitting on the fence around the whole vaccine issue, and I didn't know what to do. And so I had researched it, and if you've been in that dilemma or considering that, it's scary because you feel like you're going to kill your kid if you don't vaccinate him, and you're maybe going to kill your kid if you do, and it's so hard trying to figure out what the right decision is for your precious baby. And so we decided on one vaccine, and as soon as we got it, as you can see in this picture, she broke out with open wounds on her face and a full body rash, and foods that she had started being introduced to, she became allergic to, and it was terrifying. And so I took her back to the doctors, and they said that maybe she had a cut on her face and it got infected, which I knew was crazy. And they gave me these steroid ointments, and I tried that, and it didn't do anything. And I knew that the only thing they were going to offer me was more antibiotics and more symptomatic treatments when I knew that vaccine had done something to my baby. And I knew that it was probably worse because she'd been on antibiotics as a little baby, but I didn't know what to do. So I was frantically looking for solutions, and it was scary. I didn't know which direction to go. I didn't know what my options were. And I sat in this middle ground for a little bit, but it's my baby, so I didn't have a lot of time. So I just kind of dove in and tried looking for options. A couple things that I found that were very helpful for me, especially around the vaccine component, was reading this book, Vaccination, Examining the Records. It just lays it out very neutrally and helps you to kind of figure out where you stand. And then Michael Gaeta also has an amazing course called Vaccines and Choice, and it's free. And so if you're trying to understand some of these things, I know it's scary, but the most valuable thing you can do for you and your kids on all of these things is to start trying to get informed. Start trying to learn what your options are. So as I did that, I started to realize that nutrition and the standard process line had a lot of these answers I was looking for. And at the time, I was actually a chiropractic assistant in this clinic. And so he had a standard process account, but basically didn't order anything. So I kind of started experimenting on me and my daughter and trying to figure out some of these things that I was learning and listening to. And I started going to some trainings and asking my doctor a lot of questions and started realizing this huge shift that started taking place. And it was really cool because at the time I was working in this chiropractic office, and I'd see these kids coming in all the time that had these chronic issues, and my daughter was actually starting to get better. She was actually starting to improve. And so I was starting to have hope that she wasn't going to have these issues the rest of her life. And it was a lot of work. And it caused I had to do a ton of lifestyle changes. I had to completely change our diets, but it was saving both of our lives. So I was committed. I was ready to do it. But one thing I would love to impact anyone watching this with is that if you can do this before it gets to this point, I'm sure it's a lot less scary, and you can do it in your own timing rather than just being forced into the whole thing. And so I got this amazing opportunity to go to the Standard Process Farm, and that was life-changing for me. It sounds cheesy, but there were times that I was literally tearing up because it was so amazing. The quality and the passion and just their commitment to doing something right for humanity. And that's what makes Standard Process different. So if you're in a clinic or a situation where your practitioner is suggesting Standard Process, it's not because they just want you to buy the supplements they want you to buy. These truly are the best supplements on the market. And they're going to make a difference that others won't because they're so powerful. And one of the things that helped me understand the difference is, two things. A, you need to have something that has real food nutrients in it. So many supplements that we get are made from chemicals, and your body can't build and rebuild and create a baby from chemicals. It needs actual food and resources to do that. So making sure that you have something that's whole food. And there are other supplements out there that are whole food. Garden of Life is another company that's whole food. But Standard Process is the only company that has its own farm and regulates and does everything themselves. And the more I've learned and educated myself, the more I've realized this is critically important. Because if I don't know where something's being sourced from or coming from, how do I even know I'm really paying for the right thing or that it's doing what it should be doing in my system? And so for me, having the peace of mind of knowing that I'm using something that I can absolutely trust, I know where it's coming from, it works, and it's ethical, is really important to me and my family, and the results were phenomenal. So I decided to get pregnant a second time and decided I was definitely going to do things different. So I went all out, and I had an enormous protocol that I was on. Not everyone needs to go on that. But back to the getting A's versus C's, I had done my life and diet in a way that was C's. So to create a healthy and happy pregnancy, I had to do a lot more work to catch back up to the A lifestyle. So I changed my diet. This was 4 years later, and once I knew I was about to get pregnant, I was doing everything I needed to do so that it was going to be a good pregnancy. And it was so much better. So as a result, I decided not to get an ultrasound right off the bat because I was going to do a midwife and have it at home, and it was going to just be magical. And at 5.5 months, I was doing really well, and I went in with my midwife for my halfway ultrasound to make sure that everything with the baby was forming properly, and told them to not tell us the sex because we were going to be a surprise. And he put the wand on my belly and said, "You're going to want to know what the sex is." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you have 2 babies in here." And I was, what? Devastated. I could not comprehend that I was going to have twins now. And it was this craziest experience because when you go from having 1 baby to 2 babies, it's almost like you have a disease now. Everyone's frantic if you're healthy and if you're okay. And it was really interesting because my sister-in-law was pregnant with twins as well, and she was 7 weeks ahead of me. So because I never knew that I had twins, I'd watched her go through this process, and she'd already had multiple ultrasounds and was being watched all over, and it was crazy. And so I really had to step back and figure out, get informed all over again about what my rights were, what my options were, what could I do. I still wanted to try and have these babies at home, but now there was all these other added dynamics. And so I watched a lot of documentaries, read a lot of books, listened to podcasts, and finally decided that I was going to keep on my path, but I got a medical doctor as well so that I could make sure that if I needed one, it was there, and I still was able to find someone that worked with me, but I was still going to try and have them at home. So with that, as I went through my pregnancy, I'd have symptoms arise, but I knew through my education and through my awareness and the help of my practitioners how to counteract them. When my gums started bleeding more easily, I'd increase my vitamin C and different things that I could watch for. I started getting the color change, the mask change on my face, and that's an increase in folic acid B12. I increased that, and that mask variation color in my face went away. So it was really fun to watch how everything has a nutritional underlining. And so I got to 37 weeks. At about 35 or 36 weeks, I started to develop preeclampsia, which I know now, after going through that experience, is due to my kidneys being strained. So in all of these products, I didn't have any kidney support, and it did me in. And so I started getting this preeclampsia and was doing everything to try and stop it. But once I was getting it, my midwife was basically like, "You can't have these babies at home anymore." And so I didn't get my dream pregnancy. And as many of you know, that doesn't mean you can't have an amazing birth. It just means you need to switch it up a little bit. So I went into the doctors and asked what I should do. And one of the amazing things about having a natural practitioner is you have solutions. So as you're going through these things, ask your practitioner what they can do for you. They can help with your prenatal nutrition, your basic nutrition, any issues you might have. They can help with morning sickness, heartburn, and indigestion, preeclampsia, immune support, anemia, hemorrhoids, milk production, infant support. There's nothing they don't have support for. And remember, every issue stems from something going on or a new deficiency in your body. So as I learned this, I was able to do so many things. But I didn't realize, I didn't ask enough questions, and I didn't realize that I needed more kidney support. So I ended up at the hospital, and I had to have these 2 lovely babies at the hospital. But because I'd done all of this nutritional work and had set myself up on a good foundation, They were induced and I had them within like 4 hours. And the best part is when Leah was born, she was 6 pounds 1 ounces. And she was a beautiful baby and she was full term, but she struggled a little bit and I struggled a bit. And so my sister-in-law, who is just naturally structurally bigger than I am, had her twins 7 weeks before me, and her twins were 5'3" and 5'10". So I was thinking, man, if hers were 5'3" and 5'10", and Leah was full term and she was 6'1", I am going to have some tiny babies. And I was so nervous they were going to end up in the NICU and was just like, oh man. So I go in at 37 weeks and we have to get induced. I have these babies within 4 hours and unmedicated. I get to claim that. And they were 6'9" and 6'10". Big, giant twin babies 3 weeks early. And I could not believe it. And there was nothing more exciting than really having the evidence of what a difference this made. That being aware and having those nutritional foundations and doing everything right created and grew these amazing, healthy babies. And so we had to spend the night there, and they went into the nursery, and it was so cool because even in the nursery, the nurse came back with my husband and said, I just have to tell you, I don't know how you've done it, but these babies are as healthy as single full-term babies. Not just physically, but developmentally. They're completely alert. Like, they are amazing and healthy babies. And it was so fun for me to be, even though it wasn't what I wanted, to be in the hospital and to say, no, I don't want a vitamin K shot. No, I'm not going to vaccinate my babies. And to have that informed confidence that I had already taken care of all of those needs and they were healthy and strong and able to handle themselves. So these are some other excellent resources that you can look to for reading and understanding for yourself. Hopefully that helps, but I guess the biggest message I want to bring home is that you have options and you have the ability to create a happy and healthy mom and baby, and definitely rely on your healthcare practitioner to give you the answers, the support, and solutions you need. And unfortunately, in this day and age, you're not going to be able to create that just by diet. You're going to need some additional support, and they can help you narrow that down. Maybe you weren't a C person like I was that doesn't need all the things that I took to create these amazing healthy babies, but you definitely can have the resources and support you need. And as things arise, talk to your practitioner because they can help you to have the support you need to increase whatever nutrients to support you so that those things are resolved. So here's to healthy moms and happy babies.